Well, Naya, this looks like it's gonna be our last battle. As Deku would look at all of the heroes, all of the villains, as he would see the army that him and his woman were about to face, as Naya would look at Izuku, as they would share one last passionate kiss before going straight into battle. We're gonna have a flashback of 15 years. Izuku is 5 years old. His parents, they're kind of distant towards him. But his sister, on the other hand, is their pride and joy. Young Izuku, he doesn't really know how to get his parents' attention, but he does everything in his power to get their attention. He acts out, he gets in trouble at school, but this only makes his parents grow more distant towards him. Izuku most days just spends his time in his room, sulking. He doesn't know if he'll ever have anybody to care for him. People usually just pass right by him and think, hey, that kid's weird. Why isn't he with his parents? Izuku, he's alone. Doesn't have anybody. Friends, family, nothing. Until the day Izuku was wandering in the woods like he always does. He finds the trees to be comforting. He likes animals, trees, flowers. He finds them to be what calms him in this world. He would be roaming throughout the woods until he would stop when he saw a sword. It would be implanted into the ground. Izuku would think to himself, that looks pretty cool. As he would run over to the sword, and as if on cue, when he touched the sword, it began to glow. A yellow aura would go all throughout the sword and Izuku's body. Izuku, he could feel a weird sensation. It was like him and the sword were connecting. And before he knew it, Izuku was passed out. About 30 minutes had passed and Izuku would have woken up. Once he did, he could feel that his right, the voice cracked though, his right arm was way heavier than it should be. He would look down at it and he would see a mechanical arm. His human arm was completely gone. And so was the sword. Izuku, he was confused and scared at the same time. But his tensions were soothed, for there was a voice in his head, a calming voice. It explained to Izuku that the sword was his now. He was the rightful owner. The sword, it would reveal his name when it trusted Izuku. But the sword also needed a vessel, so it took over his right arm. And whenever Izuku wants to use the sword, All he has to do is, well, reach through the portal and grab it. As the voice would explain what Izuku had to do to summon the portal. As Izuku would do it, and he would do it repeatedly so that he would remember. And once Izuku had basically learned how to summon his sword, the voice disappeared, not giving Izuku any more information. As Izuku would stand up and say, "Oh, well, then, that was weird." As he would see that it was getting late, so he would just go home. Once Izuku walked into his house, he saw that his family was already having dinner. Izuku would walk over to the table, make himself a plate, and sit down. Seeing that his right arm was his dominant arm, he would use it. And this is when everybody would see his mechanical arm. As Izumi, or his sister, was jealous. As she'd say, Mom, how come Izuku has an awesome arm? I want one." As Inko would say, "Izuku, where did you get that arm? How did you get that arm?" As Izuku would look up at his mother with coldness in his eyes. "Don't worry about it. It's not like you even care about me. So why do you care about this arm? Oh, wait. It's because Izumi wants one. Oh, that's why you care. 'Cause your precious daughter. Your precious daughter gets whatever she wants. Isn't that right, Izumi?" As Izuku would shoot a glance over at Izumi, as Izumi would just stick her tongue out, being arrogant and bratty, as she'd say, "Don't get mad 'cause you're not as fortunate as me, Izuku. You're quirkless after all." This would piss Izuku off, like, very badly, because everybody, they always bring up the fact that he's quirkless, and they think that that makes him weak and useless. As Izuku would slam his plate to the table, or, yeah, he'd slam his plate to the table and say, "You know what? Screw you bastards. All you've ever done was neglect me. I did nothing to deserve this. I'm leaving." As he would wrap his scarf around his neck, put on his hoodie, and walk out the door. Inko, well, she would kind of take this to heart a bit, as she'd think to herself, "What type of mother have I been? My son, he doesn't want anything to do with me. But fuck all that pussy ass talking shit. I'm going back to Izuku's perspective." As we see Izuku, he would go back to the forest, saying, well, that's where his that's where his peace is. It's like his sanctuary. Once Izuku got there, he wouldn't be alone. He would see a blue-haired girl with a flower in her hair. She would be training with a sword. As she would look back, sensing Izuku. As she'd say, "Oh, hi." As Izuku would walk over and say, Who are you?" As she'd say, "My name's Naya. It's nice to meet you. Well, sorry, I don't know your name. What's your name?" As Izuku would say, "My name's Izuku. And yes, it is nice to meet you." As they would shake hands, and, well, Izuku would ask her what she was doing. The girl would say training. She kind of wants to get into UA high school. As Izuku would say, huh, do you? UA. But isn't that a pretty long ways away? We're only 5 years old. As the girl would say, yeah, but it's never too late to start dreaming. Plus, my big sister, she goes there. And she's pretty strong. I want to be just like her when I grow up. As Izuku would say, alright. As Naya would continue her sword training, as Izuku would say, could I join you? As she'd say, I don't see why not. Do you have a weapon? As she would look at his arm for the first time and say, is that your weapon? As Izuku would say, no, it's not. Uh, this is. As he would reach into the portal that he learned how to create, and he'd pull out his sword. It would look like Zabuza's executioner blade, but it would have two handles. And, well, it would be pretty heavy, and it would kind of like, what are the words I'm looking for? It would force Izuku's hand to the ground. As Izuku would try his hardest to pick up his sword, but he couldn't. As the girl would say, I think you need some conditioning before you could use that sword. As Izuku would just sweat drop, and for the next month, he would train and live in the woods. Izuku would do about 1,000 push-ups every day. He'd do 5,000 sit-ups, 10,000 squats, and he'd run 15 miles. Izuku's diet consisted of deer, rabbit, berries he could find around the woods, and, well, what was I about to say? Oh, yes, water. Deer, rabbit, berries, and water. Oh, and leaves. He'd like to eat salad. Excuse me. But, yes, that would consist of Izuku's diet. And Izuku, as a 5-year-old, he'd be pretty bulky. And within the next 2 months, he would be able to pick up his sword with just one hand. As Naya would see this and say, amazing. Your conditioning has come along well. I guess it's time for us to start our sword training. As Naya would teach Izuku the basics, like how to basically swing his sword and not hurt himself. As Izuku would get this down within the next month, and within that month, Izuku would turn 6. Naya would have already been 6, I'd say a month earlier, but on their birthdays, they would have just kept training. Izuku, he would get pretty good with his sword over, I'd say, the next 2 years. And once him and Naya eventually became masters over their weapons, their swords told them their name. Well, Izuku's sword told him its name. Izuku would be sleeping in the forest as he would hear Zereth. As Izuku would wake up and say, What? Zareth. That is my name. You were using me. I am your blade. You are my wielder, and I will now accept you as my master. As Izuku would say, okay. As he would reach into his portal and pull out his blade, but it would be different. The blade would be black, the hilt would be white, and the second hilt, it would be gone. As Izuku would say, what happened? Where's the second hilt? As the sword would say, that was just for training. You don't need it anymore since you're strong enough to wield me. But I will be training you. So, go back to sleep, and I'll see you in your mindscape. As Izuku, he wouldn't ask any more questions, and he would just go back to sleep. Oh, and by the way, Naya does have a loving family. That is why she's not, sleeping in the woods. So, once Izuku was sleeping, he would see that there were a bunch of swords all throughout, well, his mindscape. Is he would get up off of the ground as Zareth's voice would echo all throughout the realm, as it would say, "You will be fighting my clone." As a black-haired man would no, a blue-haired man would appear. He would have red eyes and pretty long hair. He'd be decently built, and his sword, it was Zareth, but it was a fake version. As Izuku would say, Zareth, is that you? How's he able to use you? As Zareth would say, no, it isn't me. That is my clone. And the blade is a clone of me as well. As you can see, instead of having a black blade, it has a white blade and a black hilt. As Izuku would say, yeah, it does, doesn't it? As Zareth would say, your job will be to find my sword throughout the millions of swords in your mindscape. And for you to gain my true power, you will have to kill my clone with my sword, or me to be specific. As Izuku would say, okay. As he would set off. But the clone would be right behind him. This nigga would be on bumpers. He wanted to beat Izuku's ass. As the clone would take swipes at Deku, as Izuku would just be dodging and trying to block these with other swords that he could use around him. It would be pretty difficult for Izuku to find Zareth in his mindscape, but Izuku would finally wise up and say, wait, this is my mindscape. As he would just think about the real version of Zareth being in his hand. As Zareth would say, so, he's an outside the box thinker. That's good. As Zareth would appear in Izuku's hand, as Izuku would rush back at the clone, as he would use an upward slash, as he would cut the clone directly in its chest, as Izuku would stab the clone straight through its chest after slashing it, creating a decently large hole in his chest, as he would pull out the sword and decapitate the, well, clone. But this wasn't all Izuku would do. The power of Zeref, it was dark, and it was beginning to consume Izuku, and his once green hair would turn black, as Izuku's eyes would be red, as he would have a weird looking smile on his face, as he would stab the clone repeatedly, as he would stab, stab, and keep stabbing until the clone was nothing but a few pieces of clothing and skin and bones, shit. But this smile would eventually fade from Izuku's face as he'd say, Zareth, what's happening to me? As Zareth would say, it's my power. I have dark and light power. But the darkness aura is consuming you. But it's not really your fault. It's your family's fault for what they've done to you. You hold hatred towards them. If you can let that hatred go, the light will balance the darkness and, well, you'll be fine again. Your hair will probably be half black, half white if you can do this. As Izuku would say, alright, so what if I can't do this? Well then, kid, you'll keep having random outbursts whenever you get angry. And you might not be able to control yourself. So, be careful. As Izuku would just say, okay. As he would leave his mindscape after his training with Zeref, as Izuku would have learned a new move. His mind would have shifted to this move after leaving the mindscape, as Zeref would have spoken up and said, oh yeah, and by the way, each time you train with me, you'll seemingly unlock a new power of sorts. This is the ability to coach your blade in darkness. It could be called Headhunter. And, well, using this darkness covered in your blade, it could basically cut through anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be titanium. It could still cut through it. But the darkness doesn't stop there. It would consume whatever you want it to, and it would slowly destroy it until, well, it was gone completely. As Izuku would say, that's a pretty cool move. How would I use this? As Izuku would, well, the sword would, Zeref would say, you need to focus. Focus on that malicious intent that you had when you were viciously stabbing my clone, and put that all into me. And then swing it at one of the trees. Swing me at one of the trees. Deku would apologize for having to kill one of the trees, but the tree would feel, it would send a sort of gratitude towards Izuku, letting him know that it was okay. As Izuku would do as Zeref said, is he would slice towards the tree. As the tree would be cut in half and consumed in darkness. As it would slowly be disintegrated, not painfully at all. As the tree could barely feel anything. Izuku would let out a tear, saying that he doesn't like to take the lives of things that have been with him since, well, day one. But Izuku would have continue practicing this move until he eventually got tired and went to sleep. The next day, he saw Naya coming to the forest. As Naya would say, "Alright, Izuku, are you ready for our training?" As Izuku would say, "Alright, Naya, yeah, let's do it." And this is where we're gonna have a time skip. We're gonna have a 5-year time skip. And Naya has been going to school. Izuku hasn't. But Izuku, he kind of has to, since Naya is forcing him. This is when Izuku would finally wise up and go back to his house. Izuku is, I'll say, 5'5", and he's pretty built. As once he got into his house, his mother did not know who he was, like, at all. Yeah, she was confused, as she would pull a knife and say, "Who are you?" As Izuku would say, "So you've forgotten your own son already, have you?" As Inko would say, "Izuku, look at you, you're all grown up." As Izuku would say, yeah, whatever. Hey, I just need you to fill out this paperwork so I can go to school." As Inko would begin doing it, as Izuku would take the paperwork back up after she was done and say thank you, and he would begin walking out the door. As Inko would say, "Izuku, if you don't mind, would you come have dinner with me and Izumi?" As Izuku would say, "And why the hell should I do that? It's not like you gave a damn about me before." As Inko would say, "I know, but I want to make things right. I'm so sorry for the way I've treated you. It was practically for no reason. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have showed favoritism towards Izumi." As Izuku would just smile, as his mother would smile back, as Izuku would say, "Okay, look, you did show favoritism towards Izumi. And guess what? That's okay. Because you're willing to put forth an effort now. But guess what? As his smile would fade, I don't give a damn. You fucked up. And that's your sin to bear." As he would walk out the house, as Izuku would attend his first day of school. He would lock on to Naya's presence, as how many years has it been? He's 11. It's been 5 years, huh? 5-year time skip. Yep, he's 11. As yeah, he would lock on to Naya's power, as he would basically teleport straight there on some instant transmission type shit. And once he got there, Izuku would tap her on the shoulder as she'd turn around and hug Izuku. Now, mind you, Izuku is at his first day of school, and he's around a bunch of people, and they're all seeing Naya, the prettiest, caring, kindest girl in school, hugging Izuku. And yes, this is Izuku's girlfriend now. She would be kissing him on the cheek repeatedly, as Izuku would just tap her on or pat her on the head and say, "Oh, relax, relax." I got my mom to sign the paperwork, and all I have to do is send it in. So where do I go? As I would say, that's amazing. You'll be coming to school with me. As Naya would say, come on, I'll show you where you turn in the paperwork. As Izuku would just have a smirk on his face, as all of the boys would be pretty pissed off. Yeah, they're pretty mad. I won't cap, they're upset. But there was one boy who was more than upset. This boy was a prince. As he didn't want Izuku talking to Naya, his Naya. But Naya thought he was just some type of creep. The boy would always try to touch Naya in pretty inappropriate places, such as her boobs, her butt, that that pussy. What? I don't know. Yeah, but the boy would try to touch her in inappropriate places, and he wanted Izuku gone after he saw with Naya, after he saw him with Naya. As the boy would make a phone call, as he would hire two of his bodyguards to take out Izuku. So after school, Izuku and Naya would be walking home, as the bodyguards would come behind them. Izuku would sense their presence, as he wouldn't hesitate. He would reach into his portal, pulling out his blade. As Naya would say, Izuku, what are you doing? As Izuku would turn around and say, sorry that you have to see this, Naya, but I'd rather kill them before they kill me. As she'd say, kill? What are you talking about? As she would turn around, as the men would come rushing at Izuku. They would have swords and guns in their hand, as they would shoot at Izuku, as Izuku cut the bullets in half, as they would all fall. As Izuku would run towards the men, as his eyes would turn red, deep red, a violent red, as Izuku would throw his sword at the first man, as it would pierce straight through his stomach, as Izuku would jump on top of the sword, as he would reach into his pocket, as he'd have two kunai, as he'd stab the man straight in his eye, as he would kick the kunai straight through the man's head, as he would throw the kunai at the other man's chest, as Izuku would rip his sword out of the man's gut, spilling all of his guts onto the ground, as he would take his sword and decapitate the man, as he would then set his sights on the other man. He would rush at the man while the man was trying to pull out, the kunai that Izuku had just enlarged in his chest, and he would cut the man's hands off. As Izuku would kick the man's feet from under him, as he'd say, this is what you get for trying to kill me. This is your sin to bear. Now die. As Izuku would stab the man straight through the throat with his sword, decapitating him completely. As Naya would be scared at this point. She would have never seen death before. Not like this. As Izuku would walk back over to Naya, as he would hug her, as he'd say, I'm sorry you had to see that. If I had the chance to erase this from your mind, I would, but I can't, and I'm sorry. As Naya would just hug him back, as her mind would finally click, as she would realize that this world, it's kill or be killed. People don't care about you. This world isn't all just sunshine and rainbows and happiness. This world has pain in it too. This world can fuck you up in horrible ways. And if Izuku didn't do what he just did, then they both might have been killed. As she would hug Izuku, in her eyes, they would gain a new light. She would want to be just like Izuku, ruthless, unbothered by killing people. She would want to be strong, but she would still want to be a hero. As Izuku would let go of his hug, and while he would look her in the eye, as he could see that her her pureness, it was completely gone. He could see a badass in the making, as he would just give her a smirk and say, "Let's go." Is they would go, well, back to the forest and begin their training. We now cut to after the training, and Izuku, he would go home, because, shit, he's not that fucked up. He will try to give his mother another chance. Because, it's his mother. He had a kind of a change of heart, but if she slips up once, he's leaving. So, he would go to his house and, shit. He would hear his mother saying, "Izumi, you better be damn nice to your brother. He's gonna bring us in a lot of money. I can already see that he's gotten stronger. I'm no dummy. Do you understand me?" As Izumi would just say, "Yes, Mom." As Izuku would act like he didn't hear a damn thing. As he would walk into the, house. As he would close the door pretty loudly to make his presence known. And after Izuku basically heard all of this, he wasn't trusting his mother anymore. She's a bitch. She's a bitch. She went back to her bitching ways like 3 years ago. She stopped caring about Izuku. And the only reason she wants him over now is so she could try to convince him to, be one of her children again, because, she kind of disowned him. And Izuku has the paperwork to prove that, so she kind of wants him to sign another form of paper, or another document stating that she's his mother again. But after what he just heard, fuck her. As Izuku would walk in, as he would sit down at the table, his mother would fix him a plate. And she'd say, "Well, Izuku, how's your life been?" As Izuku wouldn't say anything. She would keep asking him questions, but Izuku wouldn't say anything. And once he finished his meal, he said, "Hey, Mom." As Inko would perk up, as she'd say, "Yeah, yeah, honey. What is it?" As Izuku would say, "I'm not gonna make you a damn penny. Screw you. Go to hell." As he would throw his plate at his mother's head, as it would break on her face, as she'd say, "Ah, damn you bastard! You damn fucking scumbag! I'll have you murdered. I swear I will." As Izuku would just say, "Yeah, yeah, whatever." As Izumi would just have a smirk on her face. As she would kind of like this new version of her brother, but shit, she still didn't like that nigga. I mean, it had been drilled in her head so much that Izuku was a fucking mistake that, yeah, it's just permanent. It can't be changed. So we now cut to Naya's perspective. Naya, she would have just gotten home, and she would have heard something as well. Her father and mother were arguing. Yes, she would hear her father say, "That damn mistake, Naya! Why did we have her? I swear I should have just worn a condom. She thinks everything is a joke. She thinks everything's a game. It's not. Damn it. That stupid little bitch." As her mother would say, "So I should have just used plan B." As Naya would walk into the room where her parents were. As she'd say, "So that's how you guys feel, huh?" As they would freeze hearing her voice. As Naya's quirk, it would basically be, how do I put this? It would pretty much allow Naya to copy anything she sees. Like All Might's punches. She could basically copy his exact strength. And this would make her like a force to be reckoned with, because she can really use all of Izuku's techniques, moves. She could even beat him. Well, yeah, I won't go that far, because she can't use Headhunter. That's a sword. That's a technique just for Izuku alone. But she can use pretty much all of the elements, and well, shit, she basically has a copy quirk. This bitch is the ultimate hack. As Naya would say, "Screw the both of you. I'm leaving." As she would walk out of her home, as her sister would say, "Naya, wait!" As she would run after her, as her sister would get to her, as she'd hug Naya and say, "Good luck. I won't stop you from coming back, because they've been talking about you like this for a pretty long time now, and I don't want them to harm you." As her sister would hand her some money and say, "Here, $20,000. Go get yourself a hotel." No, no, no. $200,000. Shit, they rich. As Naya would say, "Thanks." As she would hug her sister one last time, as she would leave. She would be going to get Izuku, but she could see that Izuku was pretty pissed off. Yeah, he was mad, because he fell into the trap of giving his mother a second chance, but she never changed. And this pissed Izuku off. He thought it was his fault for giving her a second chance. He knew he shouldn't have, but it was his nice side taking over. And Izuku, he didn't like that. He didn't need to take pity on anybody, and he didn't need pity from anybody. Izuku wanted to be as strong as humanely possible. As he would be practicing his sword techniques, and every now and then Izuku would train with, well, he would train with Zereth, and he would have unlocked one more skill. His skill would be a flame-based attack, but it would also consume water. This is how the attack will work, basically. So the flames would come from water, basically. So Izuku would take the moisture from the air. It would become so hot that it would become like a fire water basically, as it would consume his sword, as the flames will become black and wavy. As Izuku could basically chop through shit with this, or he could let it out in one huge fucking dragon blast. But he mainly used it to cut people down with. Either that or Headhunter, because like he liked to use Headhunter. It was a pretty cool move. He liked to consume darkness and shit. Plus, it was pretty much like the ultimate killing technique. So pretty much, Izuku couldn't use his light side because he still had hatred. But shit, he could use his darkness side, which is why he only has dark techniques. As Izuku would call this technique Thunder Dragon. Nah, not Thunder Dragon. Hell Dragon, why not? Yep, Hell Dragon. So far Izuku has Headhunter and Hell Dragon in his arsenal of techniques. And this would pretty much make Izuku pretty OP. Well, not yet. Not until he gets his third technique, cause that's gonna be like that's gonna blow niggas out of the water. Plus, this mixed with his already mastery of his sword, yeah, this nigga's a goat. But he would be practicing, and Naya would pull up on him, and she'd say, "Izuku, I kinda left my house." What do you mean left? I ran away. But you don't seem like you ran away. You kind of be in a hurry. What? That doesn't matter, Izuku. All you need to know is I left my house because my parents, they were being bastards. And I can't stand them anymore. As Izuku would say, I feel you. Why do you think I'm out here practicing so hard? I fucked up and tried to give my mom another chance, but she just wanted to use me. And I suspect that's all your parents wanted from you as well. They probably thought you were a mistake, huh? As Naya would just nod her head. As Izuku would say, it's alright. Shit. It's me and you against the world out here. Come on. We need to build up a camp out here, since we don't really have money for anything else. This is when Naya would smile and she'd say, I have $100,000. Excuse me? As Izuku's eyes would open wide. As she'd say, yeah, my big sister gave it to me. She gave it to me to allow us to go get a hotel. As they would get a hotel, as each night would be $100. No. I'll say, yeah, $100. $100 for one night. Yeah. Now $50 for one night, because I wanted it to last for yeah. They're gonna stay in this hotel for a decent amount of time, probably like a few years. So they would pretty much, well, go to school, and well, the next day they would go to school, and the boy, we'll name him Richie. He was pissed off because his servants ended up dead, and Izuku, he wasn't killed. And so Richie kind of tried to take things into his own hands, as he had water manipulation. Richie would form a bubble of water around Izuku's head, as Izuku, he wouldn't suspect this, as he would have been caught in this bubble, and nobody else could see this, as Izuku would look around until he could feel a malicious intent coming from Richie, as Izuku and Naya, well, they were the only ones, including Richie, that could see this water bubble, because Richie, he was no slouch. He put a little illusion around the water bubble, making it just appear to be normal. But once he did this, fucking Izuku would just nod towards Naya, as she would send overwhelming bloodlust towards Richie, as he would drop the bubble, as Izuku would take a deep breath in and say, "Huh, looks like that little bastard wants me dead. I guess I'll have to teach him a lesson after school." But Richie was already way up, like way, like ahead of this. He had already fucking got a few heroes to be on his side, because he paid them off. I'll say, shit, I'll only give him like one serious hero, Endeavor. Endeavor is like the only decent hero among the bunch. Fuck, why couldn't I say that? He's the only decent hero among the bunch. As after school, Izuku would see heroes and a few students. Bakugo would be included in the students, as Izuku would say, "Hey Naya, how fast do you think I could wipe all of them out?" As she'd say, "I'd give it 5 minutes. I'll do it in 2. As Naya would say, "You're on. I'll start the timer once you attack the first person." As Deku would just nod his head, as he would reach into his portal, pull out his sword, and since he didn't want to kill anybody, he wouldn't use any fatal techniques. Well, except on the heroes. He didn't want to kill the kids, but the heroes, yeah, they're going to die. Well, except for one. It doesn't matter. But once Richie said attack, Izuku would first, in blinding speeds, rush towards all of the kids first, knocking them all out with the hilt of his blade, till he got to Bakugo. Bakugo would actually throw a pretty big explosion at Izuku. This would knock Izuku's blade off course from knocking him out, and he would be kicked in the stomach by fucking Bakugo. As Izuku would say, so he's actually useful. As Bakugo would still have his superiority complex, as he'd say, "You're not gonna beat me, you damn loser." As he would rush at Izuku, but Izuku, yeah, he wasn't fucking playing. He fucking kicked Bakugo straight in the face and slammed his sword down on his head, as he would have just used his sword like a blunt object instead of using it to cut Bakugo. And, well, this would have knocked Bakugo out. But the heroes, on the other hand, one by one, Izuku would have went through them, all of them, gutting them, as he would visibly enjoy this. And by the end, he would have so much blood on his sword that, well, shit, anymore? Nah, I'm gonna make this into a power. Okay, Izuku would have so much blood on his sword that it would begin to absorb the blood. As Izuku would just point his sword at Endeavor, and a blood beam, it would shoot out at Endeavor, and it would pierce him straight through the shoulder, as Endeavor would fall down, as Izuku would stomp on his head and start rubbing it into the ground. as he'd say, "Do you see how much stronger I am than you? Do you see this, Endeavor?" As he would begin to kick and beat Endeavor. And this is making the news. Everybody is seeing this. Like, nah, I won't say it made the news. Nah, never mind. The news isn't here. I'll say this was secret. Nah, I won't say this is secret. The news will find out about this. But yeah, not now though. So after Izuku is done beating the absolute fuck out of Endeavor, he would spit on him, and he would make his way over to Richie. Izuku would put away his sword. He didn't need it. He was just gonna beat this kid's ass. As Richie would try to run away, but Izuku would like flashed up in front of fucking Richie. As he would punch him in the stomach. This wouldn't be enough to knock him out, but it would do a pretty decent amount of damage. Like it would actually hurt him. As Izuku would begin to beat the shit out of Richie. As he would begin punching him, kicking him, and stomping his head into the ground. As Izuku would lift Richie's head up, as he'd say, "You little bastard. You've tried to have me killed twice, but it didn't work out in your favor, did it? Did it?" As Izuku would punch Richie straight in the stomach, making him throw up. As Izuku would say, "Now, I'm gonna kill you. This is your sin to bear." As Izuku would pick up his sword, or summon his sword, as before he could cut Richie's head off. Yeah. He won't cut his head off. He'll just stab Richie straight through his stomach, cracking and breaking his spleen completely, making him crippled. As he would pull his sword out, as he would decapitate Richie, as Richie's body and head would fall to the ground. As Izuku would look back at, no, not yet. I don't want him dead yet. I'll just say Izuku just stabbed him in the stomach. Because I need Richie I'm gonna need Richie. And so Richie would lay on the ground bleeding out as Izuku would walk back over to Naya and kiss her. Passionately, tongue and all, right in front of Richie. This would piss him off and he would vow to get his revenge. Izuku and Naya would go back to their hotel and they would make out the entire night and eventually fall asleep because shit. I mean, they're kids. But yeah, I'm going to be leaving this off here because it is 3:56. Shit. I have 3 hours of sleep. But yeah guys, bye.